Money can't buy me happiness. Is that so? So, if I have $6 billion, that doesn't make me any happier, but for some reason an iPhone 6 can make me happy. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Money can't make me happy, but it can get me a whole lot of things that somehow will. Materialism. That is pretty much the foundation of our society. And if you look at the type of materials people will rush out to buy, like the iPhone or other things, they're not quality. I mean, they don't last long. I mean, if, again, to iPhones, if you have, they're going to wear out eventually, the battery goes, stuff like that, but with anything, eventually it gets old. They're not made to last, partly because they want you to buy another one, but I reckon the number one reason things aren't made to last is because companies know you're not going to use them for long. I mean, think about it. If the iPhone, I'm not going to use that name. If you have something and you put a lot of effort into it, you make sure that it's going to last a long time. And then you just make the next one and no one's using that anymore. So there's no point in making things to last, because when the next new fad comes out, people are all going to rush to that. It's like, do we actually want things to last? I don't know. Materialism. I don't understand how money is so important. I mean, some people do so much for money, and if you think about it, if you're trying to get someone to do something, what's one of the first things that'll pop into your head? How can I get them to do this? Is money. Money makes the world go round. Because, I mean, again, money can't make me happy, but do you see the poor people, the homeless people, all the minorities? They're people without any money and a cent to their name. So, if money can't make me happy, then all those people should be just as happy as me. But are they? No. But that comes down more to equality. I mean, there should never have ever even been the need to discuss equality and racism, because when it comes down to it, I mean, when you ask, hey, should these people be allowed to do this thing we've been doing for years? There should be no thought. They're people. But, I mean, as time goes past, people are becoming less people. If you think about it, only humans can be inhuman. If you say, that pig over there is pretty inhuman, then it's a pig. It's not supposed to be human. So, we've actually thought of an insult that is calling a human being, you're not a human being. What is humanity? I mean, so you can't even use the word humanity. What is the definition of a human? Because if there's one definition of a human that everyone falls under, then if every member of a species is the same or falls under the same demographic or definition, then that species is going to die out, because you have to have change. You have to have variety, differences of opinion, differences of appearance for a species to move on. It's kind of like in those old 60s black and white alien movies when the aliens all wear the exact same clothes, and yeah. You got to wonder if that's where we're heading, because so many people just are terrified of sticking their heads out and saying, hey, I have a different opinion. Why? Why is it that one of the most horrifying things to a teenager is being different? Dare to be different, but now it's shun the non-believer. And there's a lot of people these days, I'm not going to say any specific age or type of person, but half the population, or at least half the population of first world countries, are just mindless sheep. If you're going to buy something because you need it. But people say want and need. For example, if you absolutely need something, it means you'll die without it. But to a certain extent, commodities and some luxuries are a need. Because if we stuck to nothing more than the basic bare necessities of life, then we'd die anyway, because, hell, we'd probably be the first people to die of absolute boredom. I mean, we live in a world of items. where emotions are cheap. You can't buy emotions, yes, but there's a lot of ways you can pretty much rent them. People do the most desperate things to be rich, and the amount of talentless people out there who have all these billions of dollars, but what have they done to deserve it? All the money in the world does, I mean, if there's one thing money will definitely do to you, it will corrupt you. Because when you if you get $10 every week and you want some expensive $500 thing, then you're saying, okay, I really want this $500 thing, but there's that candy bar there and I want that, and then it piles up. If you get $10 a week and you have a long goal, you think about that. You say, I want that, so I do want that chocolate bar. I'm not going to buy it, but because I'm looking towards the future. If you just suddenly get $1 billion, then that whole point of saving up, of thinking about your actions, how you're spending, if all of a sudden that becomes meaningless and it's just, I can buy whatever I want, then you're just going to be a completely different person and you're not going to be someone better. Materialism. So, I mean, even YouTube, what the best channels, I'm not saying good channels, but if you want to get good, like if you start off as a small channel and then all of a sudden you get lots and lots of views and subscribers, then it just, people think it's obvious that you're going to get a better camera. So basically you need items, you just need them. So we live in a world where novelty is thought of as a need as opposed to something that you could go out of your way to consider. And there's always a new novelty. Nothing can ever last. They just die down when people get bored of them. And that's not a very good way for life to be. I mean, when there's a new cereal brand every week. Let's use that example. Say you have a favorite cereal brand that you love, and then they cancel it and they make a new one. It's alright, but it's not the same. Then there's the next week there's one that's terrible, and then next week there's one that's even better than the first. It goes on and on and on, and in the end you're just saying, hey, I hope the next one's good, but you've forgotten about the first one that you liked. We forget things so easily. Every time there's a new one, we say, I hope that's good, but we've forgotten what good was. We don't remember the things we should be comparing them to. I mean, if you look at it, if you go think back a couple of 100 years, it took them years, decades, centuries to invent and create some of the most important technologies we have. But, I mean, in just a couple of decades, I don't know, 50, 60 years, humanity has come up with all this technology. And if you think about it, how much of it is actually useful? How much of it do we actually need? I don't understand, mostly teenagers, but just teenagers and above, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, how people just have to have a phone on them. There's a lot of people who would literally just have a psychological breakdown if they had no access to technology. I mean, the whole appeal of technology is you can talk to all these people that you met one time at a carnival from the comfort of the couch that you've never left. So it's called social media, but it's not social at all. I'm not going to discuss this because if you want to make it in the world, the basis is you have to have some kind of trade. You have to know something. You have to do something, and that's just it. You get a job and you work. So at what time did life become focused on getting a job and getting money so you can sidetrack to recreation? So basically, enjoying your life is just something you have to put off, and in order to enjoy your life, you have to slave over a desk for hours. I'm not saying recreation should be the priority, because I'm asking you a question. What do you think should be prioritized? Recreation or work? Should we focus on schoolwork or doing our jobs or earning money, and then once we've done that, go off and enjoy ourselves, buy things, talk, socialize? Or should we focus on recreation and see jobs as just something we have to do to be able to enjoy ourselves? But really, what is a world without items? If you strip back all the microchips, all the cameras, all the processors, all the people on TV telling you this phone has 10 times better graphics than brand X, if you strip all that away, then what are we? We're just people. I mean, humans have a need to differentiate themselves. I know that's a bit contradicting, because I did say that people don't want to be different, but what I mean is people want to have their own way of doing things. They want to have their own methods. They want to take their own path. But I think it's a terrible way to... If you want to express your individuality, the worst way to do that is through the same technology that everyone else has bought. Because that's not expressing your individuality. That's just saying, hey, I found I found another way to use this thing that already has 1,000 things you can do on it. I mean, there's only so many times you can tap a screen before it says, yep, I've tapped the screen and it's gotten boring. But that's the whole point. Something gets boring and then you're no longer tapping screens, but your voice control. And technology is not going to get any better if no one ever sits down and says, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything else. Because if people get bored of something, they just say, hey, this is really awesome, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get through it. Oh, that's gotten old. Oh, now this is really awesome. Then the technology will never evolve. I mean, if like touchscreens, if 1 year touchscreens are the best, and then next year they ditch that and they go for voice control, then they ditch that and go for wave your hands in the airspace, and then it gets better. If every year they're going for a new technology, then the technology they've just ditched can't grow anymore. It's like, if you plant a tree, and then you say, oh, this tree isn't growing after a month or two, then you plant another tree that's supposed to grow quicker, and you say, oh, this isn't growing fast enough, and then you keep doing that. What have you got? Have you got a tree? No, you've got a bunch of tree stumps. You've got a bunch of dead leaves, and then you go back to the first tree and say, hey, maybe if I had have taken a bit more time to grow that, to see where it could have gone, maybe we could have had something better than my latest attempt at growing a tree in 3 seconds. Maybe people would just rather forget things. I mean, not just technology, there's a lot of stuff people would rather forget. And events, memories, people, because the whole of life is just one fad after another. You meet someone, oh, hey, that person's really cool, and then they do one thing and, oh, they're not cool anymore. I don't understand how social status works like that. It can take years and years and years to build up a good reputation, but one mistake, and it's basically like a really badly designed NES game. It takes time, patience, and effort to get to the end, but you fuck up once and you go back to the start. No second chances. There is second chances, actually. Life is full of second chances. The only problem is, only the rich and famous get second chances, because there will always be blind idiots who stick up for the rich and famous. I'm not saying I know the truth. I'm not saying, oh, listen to me, I will tell you all what is really going on. The thing is, one of the hardest acts to pull off is knowing at all, in the slightest, what's going on. Because, yeah, there's a tree behind me, but I don't remember that tree being planted. I haven't been here my entire life. Everything has a story. This chair that I'm resting this computer on, this has a story. I mean, there's probably 1,000 people who've sat in it. I don't know half of them. And it's very, very, very hard to tell the world your story, to pour your heart and soul into a tale, to say, this is my darkest fear, this is everything that makes me who I am, and then watch as they all listen and with eyes wide, and then the very next day watch them all walk to some musician who considers the computer a musical instrument. 2 points in time when the planet became fucked. When the computer became considered a musical instrument and a vital tool of making songs, and when Google became a verb. So apparently now you can just use a brand name or a website as a verb. Facebook that. And brand names, just because something, slap a Nike tick on it and suddenly it's worth 100 more. Doesn't matter all the horrible things you've done to get it on shelves. Well, I'm gonna cut this short now because my battery's low and I really don't want the power to die halfway through this video. I could go on, I could go round and round and round. I could continue about materialism and all the things we say, all the things we keep in our pockets but we don't need. But the thing is, I would just be walking around in circles.